Hi there, my name is Will, and I'm the editor and director for the film you're about to witness. I know it might be dark, but I would like to give you some disclaimers before watching it. The green screen here is pretty awful, and there's some mistakes, so ignore those. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, ooh, I've been shot. Oh my god. Ooh.
This is the end. Hold your breath and count to 10. Feel the earth move and then hear my heart burst again. For this is the end. I've drowned and dreamt this moment, so overdue I owe them. Swept away, I'm stolen. Let the sky fall when it crumbles. We will stand tall. Skyfall is where we start. 1,000 miles and poles apart, where worlds collide and days are dark. You may have my number, you can take my name, but you'll never have my heart. Let the sky fall.
In our world today, millions of people are racist and start stereotypes. People all around the world struggle to get jobs and help their family because of their skin color. Because of stereotypes, people think that black people steal and don't have jobs, even though for most cases, this is not true. Racism has been a problem for a long time, dating back to when Europeans settled in North America. Hello, my name is Theron Carter Cariocha Sundell. My question is, where stereotypes came from and why people are racist. The American slave trade. Black people were enslaved in America from 1620 to 1865. White people had black people shipped from other countries to America, where black people were used as slaves. They were used to farm cotton for white people. Black people were thought as lower person and worse than whites. The slaves were treated brutally. They were beaten, raped, whipped, and even executed. So here's a picture of a person that's been whipped. So yeah, just give you a second to look at that. Lots of women slaves were forced into prostitution. The slaves would live in terrible conditions and would often be malnourished. Often the children were taken from their parents and families, and they were separated. Slaves were treated like they were not human, and were sold and traded for other slaves. Aboriginal people in Canada. Aboriginal people in Canada were terribly from racial discrimination. Aboriginal children were forced to go to residential schools. Here's a picture of a residential school here. So yeah, right there. They're taken from their families by force and brought to residential schools without a choice. In these schools, the children were beaten and they did not get taught anything. Most of the time, the kids had to do farm work and clean, not actual schoolwork. They also had to stay in small rooms that were crowded. The kids left the school depressed and malnourished. Canadian-Japanese internment camps. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, American naval base. At the time, there were about 22,000 Japanese Canadians in British Columbia. Within days of the Pearl Harbor attack, Canadian Pacific Railways fired all its Japanese workers, and most other Canadian industries followed suit. Military officials said fears of disloyalty and sabotage by Japanese kids were not likely. But the war had offered a convenient excuse for British Columbians to act on anti-Asian sentiments. On March 4, 1942, all the people of Japanese racial origin were told to leave the protected area. A dusk to dawn curfew was imposed and enforced by police. Most of the Japanese were either new citizens or born in Canada. Japanese Canadians were told to pack a single suitcase each and be taken to holding areas to wait for trains to take them inland. Vancouver Hastings Park was one of the areas where families waited, sometimes for months, to be relocated. Hundreds of women and children were squeezed into livestock pavilions. After months in animal stalls, the Japanese Canadians were shipped on sealed trains to the interior. Husbands and wives, parents and children were separated. This is a picture of a Japanese internment camp, and here's a picture of them on the train. On January 1943, the Canadian government authorized the sale of all properties seized from Japanese Canadians. The homes, cars, and businesses and personal property left behind were all sold for pittance. The lives of Japanese Canadians had built in Canada were erased. The movement of 23,000 Japanese Canadians during the war was the largest mass exodus in Canadian history. After the war, the federal government decided to remove all Japanese Canadians from British Columbia. They forced them to choose between deportation to war-ravaged Japan or to the east of the Rocky Mountains. Racism still happens today, and is still a huge problem. The latest racist problem was an 18-year-old black man, Michael Brown, who was shot by a white cop 12 times while he had his hands up and was surrendering. There are several witnesses that have all said that Brown is unarmed. Brown ended up dying on the spot. In the end, the cop was let free with no charges, even though there was witnesses saying that he was guilty. After the cop was set free with no charges, the U.S. went mad. There was riots in almost all big cities, such as New York, Washington, St. Louis, Los Angeles, and more. Here are some pictures of the riots. In all the riots, stores were broken into, bricks were thrown into shops, and highways were blocked. Another recent situation of racism is when 400-pound asthmatic black man Eric Garner died after being put in a chokehold by a white cop and other officers slamming his head into the ground. There was 5 cops on the scene. Also, Eric Garner said, "I can't breathe," more than once to the police. Watch this minute video and see for yourself.
You play all hard way for what? Every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of it. It stops today.
This guy right here is forcibly trying to lock somebody up for breaking up a fight.
Everybody standing here, they told you I didn't do nothing. I did not sell nothing. Because every time you see me, you want to harass me, you want to stop me, you want to tell the cigarette. I'm minding my business, officer. I'm minding my business. Please just leave me alone. I told you the last time. Please just leave me alone. Please, don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Hold on.
Listen, don't touch me, please. Do not touch me.
Damn, man. Put your hand, buddy. Put your hand behind your back.
I can't breathe. 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 I can't breathe.
Once again, police beating up on people.
Back up.
Right here.
Back up, then get on the steps.
Okay.
Back up.
All he did was break up a fight. And this is what happens for breaking up a fight.
The worst part about the incident is that the police did not get charged. He was set free, and that chokeholds are illegal for cops to use, so he should have been charged. Black people steal, Muslims are terrorists, Aboriginals gamble a lot. These are 3 horrible stereotypes. Stereotypes are also a huge part in today's society. There are a couple ways stereotypes can be formed. One of the ways that a stereotype can be formed is because people will notice certain people over others, and certain information attracts more attention. We all know that there are good and bad people in the culture. For example, when Al-Qaeda committed 9/11 terrorist attack, it attracted more attention than 99% of the Muslims that are nice and normal people. Another example would be a black person stealing. It would draw more attention to him than the black person that is helping someone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good man, thank you so much. Thank
Shepard.
Mommy, I don't want to go to school. Well, thank you so much. No problem, man. Thank you.
Never mind. No more. No more. I don't mind.
I appreciate it so much.
Come on, buddy. Good time.
Thanks, bro. Thank you so much. Oh, no one woke me up for the first time. 4 in a row, they woke me up.
This train is out of service. Train is out of service. All passengers, please exit the train. This train is out of service. Do not board this train. Train is out of service. All passengers, please exit the train.
Wow, bro, they didn't even help you.
Really?
Exit
It's
the
like
train.
it's like out of service and still don't even help. Messed up.
No one's gonna help this guy out. He's sleeping. Yo, wake up. It's last stop. It's last stop.
Oh boy.
Tell him what happened.
Nothing. No one helped.
Wow, you got your kids cursing at me too, huh?
Don't talk to my kids.
Wow, this is amazing.
Don't talk to my kids.
Okay.
Hello? Talk to this fucking nigga.
You're not.
The other way of creating stereotypes is through the media. We all know that most people watch the television, and therefore they make people look the way they want. The news will only film bad things happening in certain places to make them look bad, and people will watch and think that the whole culture behaves like this. The media can portray a culture however they like, therefore altering the views of other people watching. People are racist because of the behaviors of others. People begin to form behaviors and habits when they are in an environment where others do the same. People in the young America are an example. The young children see and learn from their parents, and when a parent or other significant other displays racist behavior, the child is likely to learn at a young age that other races are not equal to his or hers, or being racist is okay. Stereotypes are formed by people passing the stereotype on through word of mouth and by the media.
Sex for Dummies. How has pornography changed our opinions on sex? The pornography industry has become increasingly more popular due to its easy accessibility through mobile devices. Years ago, pornography can only be obtained through the purchase of movies or magazines in a shop, restricting anyone below the age of 18 to purchase any of these items. The thought of a way to view the videos or pictures online for free wasn't even thought of until the internet blew up. Psychological or sociological effects might not be noticeable or impacting someone as much as others, but there are detrimental problems associated with watching pornography. This is a photo of the top 5 searches between 2005 and 2013. Now these are the keyword searches that were shown with the largest increase over time. So pornography being number 1, as you can see, it has a very dramatic increase 5 years, over the 5-year period. Now love, second, doesn't have quite as much of an increase or incline of the line. So why is there so much search for porn? As you saw, that was a photo of the generic search porn or pornography. But when it comes to porn, there are different levels of intensity in searches to be made, starting at softcore, moving into hardcore. After these, which are the legal forms of pornography, comes the illegal, which will be child pornography and any other type of murder hardcore porn. So when taking the risk of watching illegal types of pornography, this can ruin your social life. Getting caught can result in jail time or charges, which can in turn affect your marriage, friendships, and if you move, you'll have to go door to door explaining that you are a sex offender, which will in turn ruin any chances of making friends, neighbors, even acquaintances at work, losing your job. Now, all of this is due to excessive porn watching, binge watching. But even after that, there can still be some detrimental problems with small amounts of porn watching. When it comes to males, 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, so on. I know 10 sounds like a low number, but the average age of being exposed to porn is 11 years old. Now, fantasies can be made in the mind after watching an amount of porn that can rewire their brain to think that sex is something different. Now, sexual crimes such as rape, sexual assault, and other verbal, maybe even abusive crimes will happen because these people want to act out on their fantasies. They start at softcore pornography and build their way up to the point where they need more to stimulate themselves. Now, this is the first time I've talked about stimulating. It can come into play with the dopamine chemical, also known as the reward chemical, which is released in your brain when watching pornography, giving you that high mood, good feeling, you want to continue to go out and do something even after, but after that, you get a crash. Now, every time you go to watch pornography, you need more and more to stimulate this dopamine chemical. So, for the first few times of watching pornography, you only need a little bit to stimulate the dopamine chemical. Then you move up to hardcore to stimulate it. Then you move up to different forms where it becomes illegal. At that point is where it can be dangerous and start to have actual physical charges to be had upon you for assault and rape. Dr. Jill Manning stated that 54% of divorces are caused because one partner was obsessive over pornography. Now, losing your marriage over pornography seems like a rather extreme version of binge watching of pornography. Even the slightest obsession of pornography is hard to get rid of. After your brain wants to force this sex feeling, this dopamine chemical through your body to make you feel good, you can't stop. Now I know that there are some good parts of masturbating or watching pornography, such as stress relief, and that good feeling that you get does last for a little bit of time. So if you need something to get done, then you might do that to just take your mind off everything and get you going.
Get the book at asapscience.com. Sexual tastes vary from person to person, but with the current pornography epidemic, as some call it, one has to wonder how exactly this may affect our desires and perception of sexuality. Moreover, how does it affect our sex lives? Pornography constitutes about 25% of all search engine requests and is the fourth most common reason people give for going on the internet. And while it may seem to simply facilitate an instinctual sexual response linked to millions of years of evolution, the truth is, pornography has dynamically changed over time, ultimately molding our tastes and desires. The not-so-shocking truth is that pornography has profound consequences for the brain and acts in many ways like a drug. With prolonged exposure, your tolerance is increased, and many often find themselves addicted. Though it's not a physical substance, it leads to the same general loss of control, the compulsiveness to seek out the activity despite negative consequences, and withdrawal when it goes away, much like that of gambling or running, for example. The issue is that continued exposure can cause long-term or even lifelong neuroplastic change in the brain. Dopamine is released as a reward whenever we accomplish something, whether it be eating to sustain life or sexual activity to produce future life. And this dopamine consolidates neural connections in order to drive us to perform the same activity in the future. In other words, it alters and forms the brain cells to motivate certain actions. It rewires your brain. The National Institutes of Health measure drug addictiveness by testing rats. The rat is trained to press a button in order to get a drug, and the harder it works indicates how addictive the substance is. It turns out that the more addictive a drug is, the more dopamine we see released. And while there is, unfortunately, no rat porn that we can give to them, we do know that dopamine is also released during sexual excitement, which pornography plays right into. The more time you spend doing it, the more dopamine gets released, which reinforces the behavior and makes you not only desire it in the future, but require it. And as you begin to imagine these images away from the computer or while having sex, they become reinforced. Furthermore, each orgasm releases even more dopamine, which consolidates the connections made during the session. It's a feedback loop that becomes harder to escape. And just like a drug, your tolerance for visual stimulation has now compounded, making it more difficult to be turned on by reality. Pornography addiction can often lead to finding your mate less attractive. The good news is, it doesn't have to be permanent. Usually when people understand the mechanism and realize it's affecting their relationships, they can stop. The brain is often described as a use it or lose it system because the neural connections you stimulate grow stronger and desire to be activated, while the ones you ignore become weakened. Much like your muscles, which, if sitting still all day, itch for activity, but after prolonged non-use, they become complacent. Luckily, because of this use it or lose it brain, the same neuroplastic system that proliferates these habits can also be used to acquire healthier ones. Got a burning question you want answered? Ask it in the comments or on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe for more weekly science videos.
Now, as the video showed, the tolerance that your brain has goes up and up and up. Now, this can lead to many problems. For Canada, it affects many marriages that can lead into divorce. Overall, the psychological effects are going to transfer into you acting out on your fantasies, or you missing out on your daughter's soccer game because you want to seek out to watch pornography. These effects can only be subdued by either A, consulting a psychiatrist, or B, just limiting your access to it, removing all internet sources, mobile devices. I'd like to thank you for watching. Sammy B out.
Hello everybody, my name is Nick and I'm here to talk to you about the increased use of anabolic steroids in professional sports such as baseball and football. Steroids are a synthetic substance in correlation with the male sex hormone testosterone, which can promote muscle growth and development. Anabolic steroids build strength by entering the muscle cells and switching the genes that make the muscle proteins. Athletes are consistently rebelling against the law and the integrity of the sport in order to improve their own personal game in a cheap or unfair way. The biggest problem here is that athletes are unaware they are not only illegally improving their strength and conditioning, but they are also putting a potentially dangerous substance into their body and causing harmful consequences to your mental and physical state. Major League Baseball has completely banned the use of performance-enhancing drugs, known as PEDs, such as anabolic steroids. They ban this because it is unfair for athletes to bulk or improve the quality of muscle strength in an unnatural way, as well as the unknown negative effects that it has on the body. As stated earlier, steroids can have a major effect on not only the physical side of the body, but also the mental one. Steroids are not able to trigger a rapid increase in the neurotransmitter dopamine. In other words, steroids are unable to give you a high like any other drugs. They can also decrease the body's tolerance to drugs after repeated use to a point where the body will almost stop producing its own testosterone. As you can see here, testosterone has an effect on pretty much every important part of your body, so it isn't necessarily something that you want to mess around with. However, long-term steroid use does have an effect on brain chemicals and pathways such as dopamine and opioid systems. This can lead to altering the attitude and personality of the user. Symptoms can include a variety of forms of increased aggression and violence, which many people refer to as roid rage. The user may also suffer from extreme mood swings, paranoid jealousy, extreme irritability, delusions, and impaired judgment because of a feeling of superiority or invincibility. And by this I mean that people who abuse steroids may have an inaccurate perception of their own body and not realize exactly what they look like. Research also shows that men who have taken steroids have a significantly decreased rate of sperm count and can also have problems with fertility. One of the most well-known cases of steroid abuse in sports is the MLB player Alex Rodriguez. About 7 years ago, he tested positive to the use of PEDs during a 3-year period with the Texas Rangers.
Alex Rodriguez speaking for the first time about his reported positive test for steroids back in 2003. He sat down with our Peter Gammons just moments ago at his home in Miami.
Alex, this weekend Sports Illustrated reported that in 2003 you tested positive for testosterone and an anabolic steroid known as primobolan. What's the truth?
When I arrived in Texas in 2001, I felt an enormous amount of pressure. I felt like I had all the weight of the world on top of me, and I needed to perform at a high level every day. Back then, it was a different culture. It was very loose. I was young. I was stupid. I was naive. And I wanted to prove to everyone that, I was worth, and being one of the greatest players of all time. And I did take a banned substance, and for that I'm very sorry and deeply regretful. And although it was a culture back then, and Major League Baseball overall was very, I just feel that, I'm just sorry. I'm sorry for that time. I'm sorry to my fans. I'm sorry for my fans in Texas. It wasn't until then that I ever thought about substance of any kind. And since then, I've proved to myself and to everyone that I don't need any of that.
So you're saying that the time period was 2001, 2, and 3?
That's pretty accurate, yes.
And what kind of substances were you taking?
Peter, that's the thing. I mean, again, it was such a loosey-goosey era that I'm guilty for a lot of things. I'm guilty for being negligent, naive, not asking all the right questions. And to be quite honest, I don't know exactly what substance I was guilty of using.
As he stated in the video, he said he was under a lot of pressure to perform at a high level each and every day, and was having a difficult time keeping up with the standards of his contract to a point where he felt like he needed to engulf himself in a world of illegal use of PEDs. Following this event, Major League Baseball decided to promote annual mandatory random drug testing. Not only does this affect an individual's game, this affects the whole culture of baseball. U.S. President Barack Obama stated, "If you're a fan of Major League Baseball, I think it tarnishes an entire era to some degree, and it's fortunate because I think there were a lot of players who played it straight." Not only is this an issue in professional sports, many students, people around our age, feel the need to use steroids to increase their speed or endurance, which can then help themselves receive a better college or university scholarship. People decide to use anabolic steroids for a variety of reasons, not only to increase body performance, but also to increase the physical appearance of one's body. Many guys have to go through at least a small amount of peer pressure about using steroids to improve the physical appearance, because some people believe that natural training is not enough. However, the people who think this way are unaware of how much negative effects it can just have on the body and mind. The use of steroids is constantly becoming more popular among younger athletes, as peer pressure in the media is causing athletes to not consider steroid use to improve the quality of play as a real crime. There are many ways of fighting against the use of steroids, such as talking to children early, explaining all the effects, negative and positive, because studies have shown that this method is actually more effective than just teaching children about the negative effects. Programs such as Atlas and Athena, which are both programs that target towards the healthy living and training for athletes. They are both led by people that are in the same situation as all of us, and just want to teach us about healthy sports nutrition and training. Another method of combating against drug abuse, like steroids, is for parents or coaches to sit down and calmly discuss the situation if they notice a quick increase in strength or stamina. Major League Baseball is beginning to start cracking down on their players' steroid use so younger athletes can see if it's truly worth it or not. To conclude, nobody really wins if a young athlete is pressured into using steroids as the only option to further an athletic desire or career. That's it, Will.
Oh, hello. My name is Will Smith, and I'm a scientist. And this is a brain of a pedophile. Today I will be talking about pedophilia and the psychology of pedophiles, and if it is truly nature or nurture. Nature being if pedophilia is hereditary, and nurture being if pedophilia is not hereditary. And if you're wondering why I picked this topic, it's because everything else was taken. But before we talk about the psychology of pedophilia, we must first know what a pedophile is. When we think about pedophiles, most people think about child molesters, but surprisingly, there is a difference. People who molest children sometimes exhibit pedophilia, but some child molesters are not pedophiles. And most pedophiles don't molest children. The American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM-4, defines pedophilia as recurrent sexual arousing fantasies, impulsive desires, and behaviors involving sexual acts with a child that occur over a period of at least 6 months. Now that we know what a pedophile is, I think it's time to find out the psychology of pedophilia. But to do that, we have to go in the mind of one. So let's Wow. This is the brain of a pedophile? It's so empty. Whoa! Who are you guys? Hi, I'm white matter. And I'm gray matter. Well, what do you guys do around here? Well, I'm the cabling tissue for the brain, which means I connect different parts of the brain together and enable you to react appropriately to people and situations. Well, I'm the part of the brain used for transportation of information from the sensory to motor stimuli, which does a lot of things. Wow, that's real neato. Let me just take a few notes. Why does it look like you're the only ones here? It's because we're in the brain of a pedophile. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, in an article by the Huffington Post, Canadian doctor James Cantor has found that pedophiles have a depletion of white matter compared to non-pedophiles. And with less white matter in the brain, it looks like the brain gets a little rewired. Cantor states, instead of evoking the responses that come with perceiving a kid, it's as if it's cross-wired, and when it sees a kid, it's triggering the sex response system instead of the parental nurturing system. Well, that's not all. An article by D. Lean revealed that there is a decreased volume of gray matter in the central striatum. Well, what does that do? Well, if the central striatum is affected, then the nucleus accumbens, orbital frontal cortex, and the cerebellums are affected too. Oh, now I get it. These areas of the brain play an important role in addictive behaviors. And with the lack of gray matter, it creates compulsive and addictive behaviors. One of those behaviors could be pedophilia itself. This is just a theory from a lot of articles I've read so far, but it would explain why those who have this addiction feel tortured until they do what they do and meet their fix. On a side note, recently researchers have shown that pedophiles are 3 times likely to be left-handed and are significantly shorter than non-pedophiles. Their IQs are typically 10 points below average too, which would be caused by the lack of gray matter too. Wait, could you be a little more specific on those last parts? Sure. A study by Richard Blanchard, a famous Canadian sexologist, tested the intelligence of 676 pedophilic subjects and found that the main intelligence rating of these pedophiles were significantly lower than non-pedophiles. This study also indicated that the lower the intelligence of the offender, the younger the age of the abused child. Okay, but why are more inclined to be left-handed and shorter? Well, researchers found in a study that was published by Sexual Abuse, a journal of research and treatment, looked at 1,200 men, most being arrested for sexual disorders between 1995 and 2006. It found that pedophiles were about 2 centimeters shorter than the average Canadian man, which is 178 centimeters or 5'10". The study's lead author, James Cantor, states it's about double the effect that would happen if a mother smokes while she's pregnant. These effects that happen in the womb can also cause the sexual rewiring in the brain, the lack of white matter. These differences can be shown in pedophiles and hebephiles. Hebephiles, for those of you who don't know, are basically pedophiles but more attracted to the ages of 11 and 14. You could say hebephiles give me the heebie-jeebies. Huh. Anyways, Cantor finishes by saying pedophiles are also 3 times more likely to be born left-handed, and that's something that really only happens in the brain's organization before birth. Wow, that's neato, but do you have any examples of pedophiles showing hereditary traits? How about 2 of them? In July 2009, the Scarborough twins, Ronald and Donald Croft, were both 40 and both arrested for possession of child pornography, with pictures of children as young as 1 year old. Here's a picture of the twins. The identical twins, known as Ron and Don, were charged as a part of an investigation that started in June 2006. Jeff Kidd of Toronto's Police Sex Crimes Unit said the twins are not facing any additional charges, though they could if any witnesses come forward. Police say they have worked in the entertainment business for several years and worked on children's television shows like Degrassi, The Next Generation, a famous Canadian TV show, and have access to children through a piano school run by a family member, their mom. Wow, that's pretty convenient that both of the twin brothers were both pedophiles. Yeah, a little too convenient. What's that noise? Oh, that's just my communicator. You're not believing this stuff, are you? What stuff? That pedophilia is hereditary. Well, isn't it? All the info I heard so far says so. Well, for one thing, some of those conditions that cause the person being born with a lack of gray matter have also been linked to disturbances in early brain development, such as being sexually abused as a child. What are you talking about? The nurture of pedophilia, environmental factors, pedophilia not being caused by genes. The most potent one being victim to abuser cycle or abused abuser phenomenon. This occurrence is perhaps the most widely known cause of pedophilia, and for good reason. The studies that have tested the abuser-abused phenomenon have had mixed results ranging from 47% to 93% of pedophiles being sexually assaulted as a child, and 47% being the lowest is an astounding amount. One study has found that pedophilia and hebephiles who were abused tend to have an age preference for children that is similar to the age when they were abused. Here's a clip from a documentary called Deliver Us from Evil. This is a scene where O'Grady, a pedophile, is asked if he was ever touched as a child.
When you were a little boy, were you ever touched sexually by a priest?
Yes.
And what was that priest's name?
I can't remember.
Do you know where it happened?
When I was an altar boy at St. Michael's Church, the event happened there.
How many times did it happen, Oliver?
Not many, I'd say 2 or 3 times.
Victim to abuser cycle is not the only environmental factor that causes pedophilia. I think it has to do a lot with the society and psychology of the abuser and where she or he was born and raised in, and his or her personality that has developed over the course of their life. For example, do you think it's just convenient that since 1950, sexual abuse has cost the Roman Catholic Church over $1 billion in expenses, and over 100,000 victims of sexual abuse from the Catholic Church have come forward in the United States alone? No. Do you also think that one of the recommendations for being a priest is being a pedophile? No. That's what I thought. Being a priest is a very important job in the religious community. They are given great power, and with great power comes great responsibility. But as John Emmerich put it, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men, and I believe it. Pedophilia is just corruption. Oh, you're still here? I know that pedophilia isn't the easiest subject to talk about or hear about, but we've learned so much today. We've learned the psychology of pedophilia, we've learned the nature and nurture of pedophilia. And for those still wondering if it is truly nature or nurture, it's both. Through the research I've done, I've seen that there are many effects that could cause pedophilia to oneself. But the one thing I haven't talked to you today about is the impact of pedophilia on Canadian society. Pedophilia is a disgusting illness, not only for what it is, but what it could lead up to, which I think you know by now. It can destroy families, and it can destroy lives in general. It is a disgusting disorder. Here's a clip from a documentary called Deliver Us from Evil. It is about Father O'Grady, a Catholic priest who was relocated to various parishes around the United States of America during the 1970s in an attempt by the Catholic Church to cover up his rapes of dozens of children. And in this scene, one of the families are talking about the first time they figured out that their daughter was raped.
I called her and I said, "Ann, did you see the paper? Did you read about Father Ollie on the paper?" And she said she didn't watch the news or something. And I said, there's all these allegations against him. The boys from, it was the Howard kids at that time. And I was, when I said it to her, I was expecting a response like, "Who's doing this?" And it was nothing. It was just absolute silence. And then I said to her, I said, "Ann, I have to ask you," I said, "did he ever touch you when you were a little girl?" And I gotta go, Mom. I gotta take care of the dog. And I just knew right then. I just felt it.
But she was still
So I
wouldn't answer you.
said, "Bob, you have to call her," because I knew she wouldn't lie to Bob. So I
asked her.
She called him, or you called her.
I asked her if he molested you.
You said, "Did he ever touch you?"
Yeah, did you ever touch him? And she said yes. And the whole world collapsed.